Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So in this video we are going to be reviewing Cloak and Dagger. Now this is going to be a spoiler review on both seasons. So if you haven't seen season 1 and season 2 then definitely go and check it out and then come back to this video as we are going to be talking about all things Cloak and Dagger. However, if you don't mind it being spoiled then definitely stay where you are, as like I said we're going to be talking about all things Cloak and Dagger. Now I just wanted to say I wanted to love this show as I was a massive fan of Marvel's Runaways, which I just thought was pretty much the best show ever. If you want to check out that video review then definitely check out the link in the description box below as I talk about all things Marvel's Runaways. Now like I said, I love Marvel's Runaways, I love The Gifted, so I thought, you know, I'm going to equally love Cloak and Dagger. And it is a good show because, you know, I did love these characters as well. It's just the storyline, especially in the second season, was just so badly executed that I just felt like it really took away from, you know, the great stuff that they did in the first season. They did tackle really big issues, which I think was phenomenal and was really brave of them and was done really well. It was just one plot though that was just extended throughout the entire second season, and it just meant that it was just a bit of a boring show overall. You know, there were moments where I was just on my phone as I was not really engaged with what was going on, and I only really wanted to finish it, A, because of this TV show review, and B, because, you know, I love superhero content, so I just wanted to finish it through because, you know, I love the different characters of Cloak and Dagger, of Mayhem, of Despair, etc. And I just wanted to see kind of what the conclusion was going to be with these characters. But other than that, I probably would have switched off if I wasn't as invested in the whole comic book world. But anyway, let's get on with this review as I'm going to be talking about all of these things in a lot more detail in the traditional way that we do on this channel. Now from a storyline point of view, I thought it would be best if I do this season by season. So let's start with season 1. So the storyline in season 1 was actually pretty decent. It was all about the world setting, kind of these two characters kind of getting their powers, kind of introducing the character to all of the individual different characters and different world aspects for all of these different characters and the different situations that they've been in to kind of get them to the position where they can become Cloak and Dagger, and how they are conflicting with this in the beginning, how they kind of eventually embrace it, how they realize that they're stronger together, how they both represent light and dark, hope and fear, and all of those kind of things. And then they had kind of different opponents as well, both kind of adult opponents, both with access to a lot of money, a lot of power, and in the beginning this was quite intimidating to both Cloak and Dagger, but then they were able to kind of rise up, use their powers, defeat these characters, and kind of thinking that they had won in a couple of different situations, but then kind of being crushed by these opponents again and then rising again. And this kind of, you know, device happened for a couple of episodes and then concluded in a really epic Resident Evil style zombie battle right at the end. So I felt like the first season was pretty decent for Cloak and Dagger. The second season, however, I just felt really undid a lot of the good work that they did in the first season. So in the first season they had kind of, you know, different episodes and different storylines in each episode for one overarching big umbrella storyline, which they had in the second season as well, but it just didn't have the different storylines for each episode in the second season. They just had one massive exaggerated arc of this character, which is effectively Despair from the comics if you've seen him, and he is a character that has the power to put fear and misery and pain in different characters and different people, and his storyline arc was effectively just done throughout the entire second season, and it was just really boring if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I really applaud the fact that they tackled, you know, drugs and sex trafficking and these kind of braver, bigger, tougher, challenging storylines, and the way that they did that was absolutely brilliant. Tandy in particular kind of handled this storyline material really well. I just feel like it was something that could have been condensed in 3 episodes that they just extended over 10 episodes, and it just meant that the second season, for me personally anyway, just was not A, enjoyable as the first season, and B, just wasn't enjoyable as a TV show either. That said, I did like the epic conclusion right at the end where Despair is kind of putting all of the fears into Ty and Tandy, and then they epically kind of rise up against this and defeat him. So I just felt like, from a storyline point of view, that was really cool, but overall the storyline for Cloak and Dagger for me was just not that enjoyable. From a characters and actors point of view, I think I'm really torn and really mixed with Cloak and Dagger. I feel like the two lead characters were absolutely phenomenal. Tandy Bowen, played by Olivia Holt, is a great character, very complex, very layered, just has loads of different attributes and aspects and growth to her character, which was fantastic. Similarly with Tyrone Johnson, played by Aubrey Joseph, a very complex, very dark, very gritty character in his own right as well. I loved how these two characters kind of grew quite a lot in the first and second season, and you know, just led the show really, really well. It's quite a big responsibility to put on these two young actors, and I felt like they handled it really, really well, and I really liked their character development and the tackling issues that they had in the first and the second season. So I feel like these two lead characters were excellent. Emma Lahana as well kind of felt a bit like the third lead character, especially in the second season, playing Brigid and Mayhem. And I felt like this was a really interesting device and exploration in terms of her character, both a police cop, but the first side of her character being a nicer, softer character, and then the second side of her character being really evil, darker, a vigilante who, especially in the first couple of episodes of the second season, you kind of think is the main villain of the second season as well. But I just felt like whilst there was a lot of promise from this character, especially Mayhem, in the second season, it was just a bit lost in the second half of the second season, which is a real shame. And then we have the character of Despair, which I just felt was such a badly executed character. This character is very strong and rich in the comics. There's a lot of, you know, layers to him, and whilst there were layers to him in the TV show, his portrayal and execution was just one that you didn't really care about, and it was just really disappointing, as I really wanted this character to be a lot better than it was, and I just felt like it really took away from the show and took away from the second season, especially, as it could have been so much better, especially when the villains in the first season didn't necessarily have superpowers but were more threatening to these two characters. So I just feel like from a character's point of view, it was just really weak from the main lead characters in terms of the villain of the second season. As well as that, the supporting cast of the show just weren't that great either. I just felt like, you know, the two lead characters of Tandy and Tyrone led the show really, really well, but they just weren't given the supporting characters that could have helped them drive the show forward. So I'm not surprised that the show was cancelled after 2 seasons. From a visuals point of view, this show is very dark and gritty. It's very akin to kind of like the Batman tone, which works for the show really, really well, as it kind of tackles those darker, grittier type storylines. I just feel like, you know, when you compare it to a show like The Runaways, which is just very vibrant, is just very different from an aesthetic point of view. But in terms of direct comparisons and things that The Runaways do and what Cloak and Dagger does, the dark dimension just looks very poor in Cloak and Dagger versus how it looks in Runaways. And, you know, the powers as well, you know, looked really, really wicked in Runaways, and they look decent in Cloak and Dagger. They look quite good. I just feel like they're just not on the same level. So overall, I just felt like Cloak and Dagger compared to Runaways just felt a lot more low budget, especially where the visuals are concerned. Overall, I was really excited to watch Cloak and Dagger, and I'm glad I did, because, you know, there were nice aspects of this show. I'm really, really proud of the fact that they tackled really challenging storylines, really challenging situations, and, you know, the fact that these are great comic book characters. I'm really glad to kind of see how they came to life. I absolutely loved their cameo in Marvel's Runaways. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal, and I just feel like they were probably more suited to the Runaways kind of world, because when they did enter that kind of world, they were done really, really well. So I just feel like it's a shame, because the Cloak and Dagger as a TV show could have been so much better than it was, but from my point of view, it just didn't live up to the level of which I wanted it to be at, and for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.